Hey guys, Suleiman back with East Iowa CFI. Today we're going to take a look at the ILS RWY approach into the Davenport Airport. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look. Make sure the chart's current here first. 19th of February 2026 to 19th of March 2026. Today is the 18th, so it is within date. Let's go ahead and start here. We got the approach frequency as well as channel. 109.10 is the frequency. Approach course 149. We got some information about the airport, including the runway landing distance, as well as the touchdown and airport elevation. Right here means that we have this T. We have published alternate takeoff minimum, so we have some sort of procedure. We'd have to look in the terminal procedure publication. Same thing for the A here. We have alternate landing minimums. It says here for an inoperative ALS, which is just a lighting system, we'd have to increase the straight and localizer approach for 1.5 if we were CAT C or D to 1 3/8 statute miles, and if we were using the Yakut fixed minimums, then we'd have to increase it to statute mile. Over here we got the MALSERs, or rather it tells you the approach lighting system, and MALSER stands for medium intensity approach lighting system with runway alignment and indicator lights, and you can look that up if you want to see what exactly that means or what it is. Or what exactly that looks like, I guess. Missed approach, you can see here, it says climb to 1500. Then we're going to make a climbing right turn to 2700 on a heading of 320. And we're going to follow the Moline radial once we intercept it up till tail and hold. All right, moving down here, we got the weather. 2017 Quad City approach control is 12595. The star means that it's not 24/7, so we need to look in the AFD to see the hours of 2595. And if it is closed, we'll have to contact some whatever other frequencies listed there, or organization. Right here, this is a military frequency, so we don't need to worry about that. Anything 200, 400, that's military, don't worry about it. 1835, that's a clearance on the ground, so if you want to pick up your IFR or activate it on the ground at Davenport, you can use that, or if you want to close it after you land, 1835 is the way to go. 1230, that's both Unicam and CTAP, and this L here tells you that there is pilot-controlled lighting. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the overhead view here. Let's start with the kind of MSA here. It tells us what are the minimum safe altitudes here, and this is all relative to CVA. And mind you, CVA is this right here. And so if we're coming from the north, it's 2300. If it's coming from the south, that's 3100. All right, now we can see the approach. First thing we'll note is we have the localizer depicted. Keep in mind it says nothing about the scale volume or the service volume of it. The size of this says nothing about the service volume. Next thing is we want to take note of which side the shade is on. Which side is shaded, I guess. And so if it's the right side, then it's going to be the front course. If it's the left side, it's the back course. And if it was a back course, we would also see like a BC here or something. But it's the right side, so it is a front course. We're not going to have a reverse sense. So we'll note here also we got Hotel. This is the final approach fix. And that's what this star or this lightning bolt indicates here. It's the final approach fix, or rather the glide slope intercept altitude for the precision approach. We can also see that we can identify it in a few different ways. One is when we are 7, if we have DME or GPS, we can identify it when we're 7 here from the end of the localizer. And radar means that Hotel pops up on the approach controller screen, so they can tell us when we're over it. Okay, now we can also see the course reversal depicted. We can see the course reversal depicted. It looks like it's a left turn we're going to have to make. And by the way, I forgot to mention, so Hotel intersection, we can identify it via radar, DME, GPS, but also at the intersection of these two radials here. That's why these two radials intersect. The 263 off CVA and 352 off Moline, that if those intersect, that tells you you're at Hotel. This also right here means this is a feeder route. That's a feeder route. This over here, this is just the RNAV waypoint that happens to be on the way here. Okay, now the next thing here, okay, now we're flying the approach. Everything kind of makes sense with regards to fixes. One last thing is we have Yakut right here, and we'll see why that's important in a second, but it tells us the Yakut is 2.8 DME, or if you have GPS, it could tell you that too, from the KDVN, which is just the localizer at Davenport, and that's just on the end of the runway for 1.5. So you can identify it with that. Right here, we have this right here. That says that there's some sort of obstruction. 859, the plus or minus means roughly thereabout. Not exactly. Okay, now we're flying this approach. We've kind of talked about everything. Now if we need to go missed, it kind of depicts what that looks like as well. Remember, dashed equals a missed. So we're going to go ahead and go out, make our turn, intercept the radial, and then we'll enter the hold and hold here at Hotel. And then also keep in mind, I forgot to mention this, but all these nav aids were given a frequency, their code, and then also a Morse code as well as channel. And that works for all of them. Now, the other thing we can see here is the alternate missed approach fix, which is right here. And we'd use this in the event a controller tells us to fly this alternate missed approach fix, and that could be either if something's out of service, or it's just very busy, or they don't have time, or some sort of situation like that. Okay, now we'll go down here. Remember, this is kind of the cheat sheet for the missed approach. Okay, I'm going miss. I'm going to go straight ahead at 1500. Then, while still climbing up to 2700, I'm going to turn to a heading to 320, intercept the 352 radial coming off the Moline VOR, and ride that all the way over to Oteo. Okay, now when we're over here, coming over here to this side, we can see it says use this DME here. This DME when you're on the localizer course. Okay, just telling you what distance should you be following. And then this side panel tells us the same thing as the overhead. Basically, we can see Oteo, and again, it tells us how we can identify it, including the distance of 7, as well as the fact that it's on radar. This remain within 10 nautical miles tells us the max distance, or to stay within 10 miles on the procedure turn. So you can see the course reversal. The minimum altitude here is 2,700. And by the way, if it was, for example, like this, that would tell us a maximum altitude 2,700. If it said this, that would be, now we have to be precisely at 2,700. Okay, now we go inbound and we can see that the glide slope intercept altitude for the ILS here is going to be 2,700. That's what this lightning bolt says. And then a Maltese cross is the final approach fix for the non-precision approach. We also have the distances in between them like usual. And then we get down here, we continue Yakut, and this altitude here, 1260, is with an asterisk, which basically just means make sure you're paying attention to what this is. And we'll explain what that is in a second. But the next thing here is you can see the VDP, and that also tells you that just give it a distance from the localizer at the VDP, and then here's a missed approach point for the non-precision approach. All right, now looking over here, we can see that we got the categories as well as the different sorts of approaches we're using. So if the NOTAMs or nodes don't conflict, we'll use this 951 here in half statute miles. And this 200 right here tells us the altitude AGL. Remember, anything in parentheses is military. Okay, now we can see Yakut fixed minimums down here. And basically what that's saying is if we're flying the localizer approach, if we're able to identify Yakut right here, we can use 1100 instead of 1260. And how can we identify Yakut? Well, there's a few ways, but one of them here we can see is 2.8 from DME or distance. And also when the localizer course and the 231 radial intersect here. So, and that's another thing to keep in mind. A lot of times these ground-based approaches look like a mess with a bunch of cross radials, but it's really to help you out, to allow you a bunch of different ways in order to identify different points here. So again, if you can identify Yakut, which you can do either via that DME or this cross radial here, then you're able to go down to those lower minimums, which are 1100. And note this asterisk means localizer. All these asterisks right here tells you it's for the localizer only, which makes sense, right? There's no need to identify any sort of fix. If you're flying the precision approach, you're just going down to the decision altitude. If you see the runway, great. If you don't, you're going missed. All right, now we got the airport. Now to the kind of overhead view, you can see the final approach course again. Airport, touchdown zone elevation. You can see where the approach lighting system is. You can also see that we have VASIs here. You can see the dimensions of the runway. And you can also see the airport beacon here. And you can also see the different sorts of runway lights you have. And so you can see those are all right here. And we can see 1533, we have higher, as well as rail lights. So, or not rail lights, sorry, just high intensity runway lighting here for 15. And these are all pilot controlled based off the fact that it's we have these symbols here. And then here are the time charts. If we don't have DME or GPS or anything like that, we can go ahead and time ourselves on the final approach fix of the missed approach point. And in the event we were using this as our way of knowing when to go missed, then we would only be able to go down to these minimums, right? Obviously. Or this one if we're circling. All right, guys, that was a briefing of the ILS localizer 15 in the Davenport. I hope you guys were able to catch on. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And until next time.